Welcome to the Do Not Ignore Your Mortality podcast. I'm Greg Barnsdale, and today on this program we have Karine Diedrich with us, and she is the Director of Advanced Care Planning with the Canadian Hospice and Palliative Care Association. Welcome to the podcast today, Karine.
Thank you. So happy to be here.
Great. Well, it's great to have you. I know you've been very busy lately preparing for Advanced Care Planning Day coming up in April. Can you tell us about that?
Yes, absolutely. So April 16th is National Advanced Care Planning Day across Canada, and we celebrate every year to try to raise awareness about the importance of advanced care planning and to help move people towards action. And so advanced care planning is a process of reflecting and communicating with the people that we love and that we care about our health and personal care wishes. So if ever we find ourselves in a situation where we can't speak for ourselves for whatever reason, those around us know, what's important to us, what matters to us, and they can use that information to make healthcare decisions that are aligned with what we would want. So it's really, it's really core to what we talk about a lot in healthcare, which is person-centered care. And so it's helping your voice to be there maybe when, it can't be there temporarily or has been interrupted unexpectedly.
Yes. And that seems to be somewhat common in our world to a degree, I guess, isn't it, Karine? That sort of event happening.
Well, it definitely shook us up about 3 years ago now, I guess, with COVID. I think that really brought it to the forefront that we don't know what's around the corner. And this is something, it's, at the end of the day, what we've seen is when it comes to advanced care planning, or ACP, as you might hear kind of just slip out of my mouth, people who participate in advanced care planning, they often talk about feeling less stress and providing them with a peace of mind. So as people learn about what it is, they might have questions, not quite sure where to get started. But I think really at the end of the day, if we could start to normalize advanced care planning, just like we normalize other elements of life planning. So whether that's financial planning, wedding planning, career planning, when we start, we aren't really quite sure where we're going. We're not 100% sure what questions to ask. We get advice, we have different conversations. So I think for me, it's really important that we start to normalize conversations about what matters to us and how that could impact and guide the healthcare decisions that others might be making for us or with us. Because ultimately, we don't make decisions alone. If you're going to buy a new car, you start by asking people, oh, what's a good car? Would you like this car? Have you ever had that car? Do you know anybody who has this car? Right? These are things and decisions and conversations we have with others. So it's the same thing with advanced care planning. We're going to talk to others who maybe have been through it or have talked about these things or wondered about these things. And it's a process. You're not going to have to do it all at once, learn everything all at the same time. It's a journey, and we all learn together.
Yes, well, that's a great way of putting it. You had mentioned a few minutes ago, Karine, about reducing the stress and taking that pressure off people by being organized. And in this book that I had published about end-of-life planning and being proactive, all in much the same theme as what you're speaking to, I stressed the same thing as I do in conversations about my message, is that a lot of people don't realize that being proactive in this way, especially surrounding end-of-life planning, reduces the stress of aging.
Yes, and we saw it a lot with COVID. There's stress in the unknown, and there's stress in not feeling a sense of control. And we were very much reminded of that, I think, over these past few years. One of the things that advanced care planning can help us to do is, and actually that's the theme for our, so we change themes every year for Advanced Care Planning Day. So our theme this year is, if not you, who? So that's something that you can decide. You can choose, who do you want to make decisions for you if you aren't able to do so. And for some people, that's not a stressful thing to think about. And for others, it can be. So if I'm a single mother with young children, who do I trust? if I've recently moved cities and my closest friends and loved ones aren't physically close to me anymore, who do I want to make those decisions? Who's going to be accessible? How are they going to reach them? And we're just asking folks this year, just think about it. We're not even asking them to solve the problem. We're just saying, just take some time to think
Yes.
about, who do you think that person would be? Have you talked to that person? Do they know that you would want them to make those decisions for you? Are they well suited to do that? Are they well under pressure? Do they understand what's important to you? Do they know how to get information that's going to help them to make those decisions? So we can really simplify it, I think, to just think about it to get started. And it's going to raise different questions, and those questions
Mhm.
will help guide you towards your next step.
Yes, as you said, it's a great starting point, and it's the most practical starting point too. It is really just about communication, as I've stressed in my message.
Yes, absolutely. If we write things down but we don't tell anyone where it is, or if we think about it and we never engage people in a conversation after we've had a chance to think about it, or maybe you're someone who processes by talking things out with people. Great, why don't you think about it together? Think about it with others. Have you thought about this? Where did it go?
Right.
Or think about your health history. What, if you happen to know it, what's your health history? What's your parents' health history? What's your siblings' health history? All of these different questions, all of these reflections will raise questions, which is good, right? And what we're
Mm.
asking people to do is lean into some of these questions instead of turning away from them. You don't need to lean into all of them all at the same time. We're just asking you to lean in a little bit. And in fact, what we've seen, so at the Canadian Hospice Palliative Care Association, which is the organization that leads the Advanced Care Planning Canada project, we've done national polls for several years. And consistently, Canadians think that planning for your future health and personal care is important, like over 90%. However, we have about 1 in 5 that actually takes a step towards that. So we think it's a great idea, but we don't seem to engage. Last year, so between 2019 and 2021, so thinking of COVID there, we actually saw one of our most significant jumps in our polling data, and that was conversations between family members, and those conversations almost doubled. So from 2019
Wow.
to 2021, the world was challenging, scary, unknown, and people took action. And so we went from 1 in 3 to almost 2 in 3. So about 36% to just under 60% having those conversations. We also saw conversations increase with close friends, with lawyers, and with financial advisors. So if we think of health and personal care planning as life planning, it intersects with these different components of our life. And so you may go to a lawyer to set up a will, and they might say, "Oh, have you thought about who's going to be making healthcare decisions for you?" And this looks and feels different across the country, but they might raise that question with you. And then it's going to start to think, so this is the same thing going back to what I was talking about before. If you just go, "Oh, yeah, I would like to," so in Ontario, for example, you would set up a power of attorney for personal care. I could write that up and say, "Yep, it's going to be my husband." And if I don't tell my husband he's going to do that, and I don't talk to my husband about what's important to me, or I don't at the very least kind of let him know, um, he's going to be maybe a little overwhelmed. Maybe not. Maybe he's just going to presume, "Well, yeah, I'm your husband. Of course I'm going to make these decisions." But what if I'm single? Or what if I have 2 children and they're 2 adult children? I do. I have 2 daughters. Which one would I want to make those decisions? How would I want one to support the other so that there's reduced conflict in times of stress? So I think we saw momentum. We actually have a poll that was just in the field actually this month. It just closed. So we're very curious to see how those numbers are going to be trending now that we're kind of not in the heart of COVID anymore, and to see have those conversations maintained. Have they changed? Have conversations with healthcare providers changed. So that was something, it didn't change. So between 2019 and 2021, about 7% of people spoke with their healthcare providers about their healthcare and personal wishes. So that number actually slightly dropped from 8% to 7%.
Right.
We have different theories for that, but that's also a really important part of this discussion.
Yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I really, really hope we don't need an. I'm trying to find a way to not have a global pandemic prompt these conversations.
Yeah.
Um, it's, it can be intimidating. So the other things we ask people in these polls are things about what prompted you to get started. So for those who have taken steps towards advanced care planning, why? What got them started? That ranges from personal experience. So either somebody close to them or a loved one maybe went through a sudden illness and they saw it handled really well, or they saw it handled really poorly. And that motivates them to take action to say, ooh, I never thought about that. We should have those conversations too. Or, oh my goodness, I don't want to go through what they just went through. I need to have some conversations. So that personal experience amongst the people close to us definitely prompts people to take action. Um, Often engaging with a lawyer or some key life milestones. So you get married, you have children, you get divorced, there's the death of a loved one. These kind of big milestones in our life, they also prompt people to think big picture, to reflect. There's a shift in perspective often. And so that will definitely prompt people to take action. We also look at barriers. Um, One of the biggest barriers is people just think it's more complicated than it is. And so that goes back to the beginning of our conversation where we're saying one step at a time, just think about it. Just start by thinking about it, or start by having a conversation with someone you trust about it. We've we've used movies, we've used music to get people to connect and think and talk. It prompts these different emotions, which can sometimes be a little scary, overwhelming, but sometimes are empowering and engaging and exciting to kind of think, oh, wow, okay, well, what would that look like? So I think it's really following people along that journey, trying to support them as best as we can with information, with tools, with resources, with guides, and with stories of what it looks like for other people.
Yes. When you mentioned about the aspect of people having a significant event in their life, what I have seen most often is people having a death within their family or a close friend, and that prompting them to prearrange their funeral. You're absolutely right. It's something I've seen so often, and I can certainly appreciate that in the aspect of advanced care planning.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, stories are so powerful. And often people ask us, well, what does it look like, right? It's kind of this nebulous concept, or you're not sure about it, or you kind of get it, but you're not sure how it applies to you. Do I have to wait? Am I, what stage should I do this at? So from our perspective, advanced care planning is for any age or stage of life. And the earlier you can start, the better. We know practice makes perfect. So it might be a really awkward conversation the first time, might be a great conversation the first time. You really don't know. But I think it's really that peace of mind and the recognition that our wishes matter and people want us, they want to support us. So I've also heard a lot of stories about the flip. So thinking about somebody who has aging parents who are dealing with multiple health issues, and they know they're going to have to make those decisions, and their parents don't want to talk about it. And it creates stress for them because they want to do what their parents want, but they don't know what their parents want.
Right.
So there's also that reverse of, we might be afraid to have those conversations because we think somebody doesn't want to talk about it, but we could have people around us who really would appreciate us sharing a few things. It doesn't need to be an hour-long conversation. If anything, make it small little conversations. We often undertake what we would call advanced care planning in small bite-sized pieces, and we don't even realize we're doing it. So it's like you said, it's really those conversations and that communication are so critical. in anything that we're doing with people. But if
Yes.
we, we just, it's, those are the main kind of I think that would be the main, one of the main messages is just think about it. And then based on what comes up, pick one person, have a conversation with them. If you're going to trust someone or consider somebody to make these decisions for you, you're going to need to, hopefully you trust that person and feel safe in having that conversation.
Yes. Yes. And it needs to be someone that is willing to really go to bat for you, even if they don't believe in your specific approach necessarily. Is that not the case?
Yeah, and that's something that's been circulating around I guess my world for a little while is often people know of the golden rule. So do unto others as you would like have done unto you. And this is
Yes.
something in medicine you hear quite a bit. And more recently, Dr. Harvey Chochnov has brought forward the platinum rule. And the platinum rule is about do unto others as they would want done for themselves. So
Wow.
it's a nuance. I might want something. You might want something completely different. It's not about what I would want if I was in your shoes. It's about what you would want in that situation. And
Right.
that really is the essence of that person centered care. It's putting the patient, it's putting the individual with their cultural beliefs, with their family structure, with their values, with their preferences at the heart of those decisions. And sometimes it can be as simple as there was a story that was relayed to me of an individual who she rode her bike was everything to her. And when I say everything, she rode her bike everywhere. She socialized on her bike. She did groceries on her bike. She lived and breathed on her bike. It might as well have been a part of her. Cycling was so critical to her quality of life, how she moved about the world, how she socialized with her friends. They would go and do long bike. It was just how she moved through the world and had done so the majority of her life. And her doctor didn't know this until he almost found out by accident. So she had been diagnosed with a particular illness. He was looking at different treatment options. And the fact that he learned about her lifestyle, in particular, her attachment to her bike and how critical it was to her way of life, he actually recommended different treatment options for her to consider because the impact on her quality of life, the way that she defined it, was very different from his. And he didn't even know that about his patient because there had been no opportunities for those conversations. So sometimes it can feel like something completely unrelated, but that sense of connection, of movement, of engagement through that bike, it's who she was, right? We all know different people who have different elements. They live and breathe sports, or they live and breathe cooking, or they live and breathe their spirituality. There's different parts of people that are really essential to them. If the only conversations you're ever having with your healthcare providers are about your blood pressure, your muscle mass, your cholesterol,
Yeah.
and they never hear anything about who you are as a human being and what's important to you, they just don't know what they don't know. And they can make different treatment recommendations or options available to you if they can. Sometimes that might not be an option, but sometimes they can. Often they can. And if there's somebody who is close to you and can speak for you, they can also help to make sure that's front and center if you're not able to speak for yourself. So that's just one of the many stories that have kind of come across our desks or our emails or on phone calls where it seems so unrelated, maybe, right? Like you kind of go, well, how does riding a bike help someone make a decision about their health or personal care? Well, ultimately, it's about their quality of life and what makes their quality of life particularly unique to them and brings them that kind of sense of belonging and joy and meaning.
Yes. And I guess in some cases as well, Karen, it's also a matter of some people completing these types of their power of attorney for care, as an example, to specify treatments that they may not want in later stages of life.
Absolutely. And I think, one of the things that has really shifted in advanced care planning has been that shift. So originally, advanced care planning was very specific to end of life planning. And it was about death and dying and specific treatments and checklists and check boxes. But so much changes over time. And so it's really leaned more towards those values, those wishes, those beliefs, what's important to you, and and the nuances of what that might mean, right? So that if you go, well, my food, because it's part of my culture, it's about my ability to participate in the rituals of what I believe in connects me to my higher being. That's going to impact a treatment decision. It's going to impact, right? There's different stories and examples of how someone not being able to participate in something they've participated in their entire life might sound so small and minuscule. That might not show up in a documentation. It's not going to be a checkbox for you to tick. It's going to be an element of the person that you can bring forward when there's decisions being made. It's questions you can ask when healthcare options are being provided to you. You say, okay, we can do this, or we can do this, or we can do this. Well, you can ask, well, how is it going to impact their ability in the future to participate in X, or undertake Y, or travel, or play with their grandchildren? I'm not sure, right? There's all of these different
Mhm.
elements that really shine through and will make a big difference to people's quality of life ultimately, I think.
Yes, and that's a perfect reason to give careful consideration as to who you want to basically to speak for you.
Yeah, and so everywhere across the country, the law will say that's this person, then this person, then this person. It's a little bit different depending on your province or territory. And you could be totally fine with that person, and that's fine. And then you don't have to worry about it. You just have to see, oh, this says that this person is good. Okay, perfect. That works for me, no problem. Now have a conversation with that person. For others, you're going to want someone very different. Maybe you're going to want your chosen family. Maybe you're going to want your friend. Maybe you're going to want your sibling. And in that case, you have the power to choose that. You have the ability to identify who you want to make those choices for you. And so that again is a sense of control and agency over yourself and your wishes and who you think is going to best represent you.
Yes, yeah, having that control is vital, and we all want control over our lives, and quite often this difficult, kind of controversial and touchy subject is often overlooked, unfortunately.
Yeah, and we keep talking about that person. And I guess I also want to say you can I would encourage folks to make sure that you have a conversation with the people around that person so that, sometimes there's going to be difficult conversations and you're going to want that person to be supported. So whoever is in your circle, whoever you consider your people, have those conversations with them. We know we have different relationships with people who are really, they have different strengths and they have different abilities. And so, how can you build your team, so to speak, that's based on their different skills and abilities, where they'll complement and support each other and they all understand, yes, the decision might be up to this one individual, but I need you all to be supporting this individual because it's not going to be easy or because they might second guess, but this is what I'm saying. And now there's multiple people hearing it. And we also encourage people to write it down somehow. If you're not sure, you have a conversation once. We've all played the telephone game, right? Everybody hears something a little bit different. So make an audio recording, write it down in a journal, however you want to express yourself. There's lots of different ways of doing it, but that's another component that we encourage folks to do is to consider recording their wishes somewhere in a way that can be shared easily with others. And
Right.
again, it just adds to that clarity and that communication.
Yes. Well, it certainly makes a lot of sense. It sounds like your organization is doing some great things to raise awareness for this.
We're trying to. We're really trying to, and we've got a wonderful website, advancecareplanning.ca. And on that website, you can find information, tools, guides, links to resources in your respective province and territory. You can also find information about Advanced Care Planning Day on April 16th. So we have a free campaign kit if there's individuals or companies or organizations that want to get involved and share the message and engage in the campaign or tell folks about it. So there's lots of different things for folks to digest there. There's videos, there's, you can do a deep dive, or you can just go in and dip your toe and learn about, oh, what is this thing? I was listening to this podcast, there was this website, maybe I'll check it out. So please take a moment, advancedcareplanning.ca. There's a wealth of information there. You can reach out to us and we will be happy to direct you to where you can get more information.
Great. Well, it's a fantastic message, Karen. I appreciate your time today. And thank you for all your hard work to make a positive difference in the lives of many other Canadians.
Well, thank you for the chance to share that work with your audience today.